record this session so that some of my friends who asked to see the recording can do that later. Good to see you all. I love doing these every month. It's just fun to kind of share some thoughts and see what's going on with you all. And a lot of what I hear people struggling with these days is some of it's COVID related, some of it's not. And so I wanted to um, start out actually talking about emotional health because, well, one, it's something that I'm super passionate about because I feel like emotional health is health. And the two just go so hand in hand. And I think when we're able to, some of you have heard me say this before, but it just kind of blows my mind that we spend a lot of time in every other system of the body, um, your lungs, cardiovascular health, hormones, all that stuff, being very intentional about the physiology behind what's going on. And then somehow, culturally, medically, when it comes to things like emotions, feelings, habits, management of relationships, there's this perception of like, well, let's just get it together. And, we don't really talk enough about behind the scenes neurotransmitters, hormones, inflammation levels that really affect brain health um, more than more than anything, and not that we need to like over medicalize things, but there's our brain is a miraculous thing, but yet it also gets a little stubborn on us and starts creating thoughts and feelings and habits that sometimes we don't like to go there. So this is my shout out for anyone who is struggling. Don't ignore it and don't think that you just have to try again tomorrow to try to, hope something is different, because waiting on our circumstance to change in order to change our thoughts about it or our feelings about it is not really a great strategy. So, obviously we have a counselor that, works with us here. I'm a wannabe psychologist myself. Um, and I, have a network of people um, that love to help walk people through whether it's relationship difficulties with feelings, motivation, energy, the whole gamut. And to that end specifically, so that's, more related to counseling, but you also may have heard about there's more in the category of a coaching relationship, whether it's health coaches, life coaches. I am actually currently involved with an organization called the Life Coach School, and am helping a group of trainees become certified life coaches. So those trainees have to have a certain number of free coaching hours that they provide. So if anybody wants to like give it a try, give it a roll being coached by a life coach, um, shoot me a message either, privately in the chat here or on your, portal and email and all that good stuff. And I can hook you up with someone. And that's just over the next I think we have 4 or 5 months left of the program. So or if you know of anyone who, wants to take advantage of that, you can give them my contact information to get in touch with me, because it's kind of a cool opportunity just to kind of dip your toe in the coaching realm. A lot of people ask me what's the difference between coaching and counseling. A lot of people think of it as almost like backward thinking versus forward thinking. So, in general, a coaching relationship will take you from where you're at here, kind of like struggling, maybe thinking about certain decisions or trying to move forward in an area, whether it's, business related, relationship related, mood related, and kind of help you walk forward. Whereas counseling might need to do a little bit of backward thinking and clearing up emotions related to whether it's childhood traumatic events, processing grief, processing you know past traumas of any kind. Um, and so that's one difference. And then the other difference I would say is just related to kind of your personal level of comfort and functioning. So someone who's really having trouble with more maybe intense depression or anxiety or thoughts of hurting themselves, thoughts of I wish I wasn't here. That is not necessarily where we want a coaching relationship. We really want to be really aggressive and forward thinking about getting help through a counselor, therapist, psychologist, that kind of realm. So, but I just you can't I just wanna kind of reiterate that we can't tell our brain what not to do, and that's what I am seeing a lot of right now, like, "Stop being so negative, I wish I wasn't this way, I wish I wasn't this way," and your brain, it's almost like, as wise as it is, it just doesn't ever hear the word "not." It just goes for the negative. And, there are lovely scientific reasons behind that. Our brain is just trying to protect us, just trying to keep us safe. But in order to really kind of change those thoughts and processes, we have to not necessarily only look at what we don't want to be doing. We have to be able to train it on what we should be doing, what we want to be doing. And I know some of that can seem to some people, it seems a little frou-frou or a little like, "Oh, do I have to be doing this?" But the reality is, if we want to think more positive thoughts and have more positive feelings, we have to, really watch the tone that we're using with ourselves. And we have to really, tune into those thoughts. One, slow down enough to even hear those thoughts and tune into those thoughts so that we can change them because well, as I frequently say, nobody's ever bullied themselves into feeling better. And everybody has a little bully inside their head that tries to whip them into shape. It just does not work. So happy to help with that. The other thing that I wanted to give an update on was vaccine, of course, COVID vaccine. And I can't say that I have any breaking news per se about the status or where to get it. I thought I would share a little bit about my personal experience. I got my first COVID vaccine almost a month ago. And it was a Moderna shot. I didn't necessarily have a choice whether I wanted Moderna and Pfizer, and I wouldn't necessarily choose to distinguish between the two if I did have a choice. And I'm getting my next injection tomorrow morning. So, after the first injection, my personal experience was like that of most people. My arm was sore. I kind of joke because at first I had a little thought that passed my mind that like, "Oh, wow, I'm so proud of myself. I was working out yesterday and I'm sore. I must be building some muscles." And then the next little thought that came in was like, "Oh, it's just my left arm. I don't even get any credit for it. It's just that darn vaccine making me sore." So I didn't get bigger muscles from it. Um, and I, maybe felt a little more tired that day or maybe had a little bit of a headache, but nothing that I had to treat. And that's fairly run of the mill for those people who experience their first injection. Going into the second injection, I'm a little more aware of it. Um, I think just like everyone, even though I know the science behind it and I am completely supportive of myself getting it, and 99% of my patients, there are very few people that I would not recommend get the injection, the vaccine. But it's human nature is human nature, and when you voluntarily step up for someone to stick uh, a needle in your arm and create an immune response, it makes you think twice, right? So I'm in training and um hydrating up today. I'm gonna sleep well. I'm gonna get a good breakfast. I'm gonna drink 30 ounces of water before I go in. And I am not gonna pre-treat in the way of like Tylenol or Motrin or anything, but I have kind of my standard supplements that I take on a regular basis, multivitamin, omega-3, probiotic. Am I forgetting something? That's pretty, and one that's kind of like an antioxidant blend thing. So that's what I take on a regular basis. And then I recommend to a lot of people who are interested in kind of more of the supplement support and integrative medicine realm that you bump up your vitamin C. And then I also take something called Viracid that is basically kind of like a fancy airborne over the counter. And I like it because it comes from a company that I know studies these things for absorption, for purity, and for actual clinical effect, whereas other supplements that we can buy over the counter don't necessarily do that, aren't required by the FDA to do that. And so that has a mixture of things like extra zinc, vitamin C, echinacea, elderberry, and a couple of other things that, in general, I don't want to say rev up the immune system because you don't want to like boost anything unchecked. That's not necessarily the way the physiology works, but can help the immune system be more responsive. So, um, that is what I'm doing. And if you have any questions about that, of course, feel free to let me know. And then I'm praying for the best because I got a busy day tomorrow and I got a busy day on Friday. And I'm hoping that I don't feel tired and I don't have a headache and I don't have a fever. But if I do, that is my body creating an immune response. And in the end, it's a heck of a lot better than the chance of having a poor outcome, when and if I do encounter the virus. So and then, what does I think the question on everybody's mind is like, what does the post-vaccination world look like? And there's a couple of things to consider in that conversation. One, just kind of like I've always talked, we have to think, what's it mean for my bubble? And then what does it mean for like how I act among the community? And so, there is a level of reassurance. I don't the vaccine does not completely guarantee that I won't get COVID and I won't transmit COVID. It does much, much decrease my chances of getting any severe COVID that would have lingering effects or land me in the hospital or land me on oxygen support and all that realm, and those that I come in contact with. So, among my kind of circle of friends, I think I will loosen up a little bit among people who are vaccinated, because I still could, in theory, have mild and asymptomatic exposures that I could transmit to other people. There's that unknown there. And so, among getting together with my best friend who's a physician who I haven't seen except in passing since March, like we're probably going to get together. you know and so expanding that bubble among vaccinated individuals, I think, is wonderful. But then you have to consider, okay, we're still in a situation where the incidence among our community is pretty high, and we have a lot of people who are not vaccinated yet. So how I'm going to conduct myself within the community really isn't going to change. I'm still going to be cautious when going to the stores. I'm still not going to, well, I personally am not going to indoor restaurants, only because that's, in our area of the country, it's an indoor space where people are unmasked. Oh, because you have to eat. And, we're still not gonna be going to basketball games and, large events. And so as things progress, though, as the incidence drops, we would have to think that as people are being careful still, as the weather breaks and people are getting outside more, the incidence will drop even separate from vaccination, plus you get the vaccination on top of things, then your kind of risk benefit ratio decreases a bit. So that is exactly kind of how we're conducting things. And I think in a lot of ways, we'll just have so much more information come spring and summertime as to how the virus is conducting itself and to how many people have gotten vaccinated. And we'll be looking at a different situation, come fall, is what I would think. Is COVID ever going away? Probably not. But once as a community looking out for each other, we are to a point where we know more about its transmission medically. Everyone's at least had the opportunity to be vaccinated if they so choose. Then we can loosen up, right? Because you have the opportunity. Will people still choose not to be vaccinated and still die? Yes, that happens every year with the flu. But when we have rolled out everything that we can do related to protecting people with vaccination and with more aggressive measures when the incidence is really high, then as that incidence drops, less and less people will be affected, and more people can be reassured that even if they do get it, it's not going to be that severe course. And that's what I tell people every year with the flu. When you get a flu shot, you do not get a flu shot in order to guarantee that you won't get the flu. You get a flu shot in order to drastically decrease your chances of ending up in the hospital or dying with the flu, which again, people still do every single year. So that's my thought on the vaccine to date and kind of looking forward. Um, I think, and looking forward, I think we have to, and this is related to the vaccine and what I mentioned earlier about emotional health. The biggest thing, in my opinion, that this pandemic has attempted to steal from us is something to look forward to, right? Like who a vacation, a wedding, excuse me, a birthday party. Our psyche is extremely accustomed to working in anticipation, and that sends off all the beautiful brain chemicals that give us happiness to a large degree. And so when we remove that, that's a lot of what has taken a toll is people feel like, I don't even know what I can look forward to. Now, the good news is we think in terms of big things, but you can get the same neurotransmitter hit, so to speak, by looking forward to anything. And so, one of the things that I've talked on here a little bit before and talk with patients about is if you are not being intentional about what you're doing every day and what you're looking forward to the next day, you're missing a big opportunity to increase your mood and increase your happiness. And again, it can sound a little frou frou or whatever. The fact that when I went to bed last night, I knew exactly what I was going to do the next day, what workout I was going to do, what podcast I was going to listen to in the shower, and what music I was going to like car dance my way up to 72. I knew exactly what I was going to be dancing to. And it's it's not like it's top of mind, but it's something to look forward to and something that I enjoy doing, and then something later on that I'll probably laugh at myself that who saw me going up 270 listening to J Lo, I have no idea. So, but those are those little things. So, a pandemic has not robbed anyone of the ability to look forward to something. It may have robbed us the opportunity to look forward to what we would have preferred to look forward to. But continue to do that mental exercise of every day, what am I looking forward to tomorrow? What am I looking forward to tomorrow? And if you're having trouble thinking of things to look forward to, that is a litmus test for you need to be talking to me, you need to be talking to a counselor. Because if we can't shift our thinking enough to say, gosh, even within the chaos of the world, chaos of my family, chaos of, my community, whatever it is, I still personally, the fact still remains that I personally deserve to enjoy my life every single day. If we can't like do the mental gymnastics to get there to that mindset, then we have some work to do, right? So, um, the only other thing that I wanted to mention is make sure I'm not missing anything. I had a really, really good question come to me about this era of like misinformation, right? Like, who do I believe? And especially when some of the maybe more controversial opinions out there, you'll see credentials associated with them. That this person's a nurse practitioner or a biochemist or an anatomist or a physician, and they are, really subscribed to some thinking related to maybe I mean, all the things that people are saying, like this vaccine is or this, COVID is a hoax, and people are making money off death certificates, and this is just a plot to get everybody vaccinated, and all those things. And so, the way I think about it, and I'll share with you in case it's helpful. Um, one, every thought I think, is this serving me? Does this pass the filter of like, does this make sense? And when it comes to conspiracy theories in particular, you always have to think like one thing, is this plausible or not? And what's the gain, to this thing? And if we take the vaccine, as an example, I think, so the gain to the vaccine is that a lot of people are going to make a lot of money. A lot of pharmaceutical companies are going to make a lot of money on this vaccine. That is true. Um, and but does that make it plausible that the world could be like conspiring to make this happen, you know? And I think that's where you have to kind of draw the line, because our brain will think worst case scenario. Our brain will think like, what if? What if this small thing, right? And I think, and then you just kind of have to laugh at your brain, because I'm thinking, the government can't even manage to get me like an update on my tax return within 10 months. How is it going to cover up everything that it needs to cover up to make, something like this happen? And people have done studies on conspiracy theories for, forever and a day. And I can't even pretend that I'm can speak intelligently enough about the science behind it, and the math that has to happen to coordinate a large scale conspiracy theory. But suffice it to say that it's mathematically impossible for some of the things that are being portrayed to happen. It's just mathematically impossible. Now, have conspiracy theories happened and been proven true? Yes. Every single time that has happened in our history, it has been short lived and involved a small amount of people. Mathematically, that can happen. We've all played the telephone game when we were a kid, and you talk to people, and you pass down something that is said, and by the end of 10 people, it's something totally different than it was at the beginning, right? So, but when you get a small amount of people, we could all agree and you can all pull something off if you're inclined to do so. But these large scale conspiracy theories are so detrimental to our emotional health and people's physical health when it institutes or when it injects, doubt in true science. I think it's just very unfortunate. So, however, we would all be well served to recognize that there are systems and processes in place that encourage certain things um, that we may believe in or not believe in. So what pops into my mind related to vaccine, and you hear on one side people saying like, "Oh, it's you're microchipping, and you just want to get everybody like controlled and this and that." Well, that's one like mathematically implausible explanation. But another plausible explanation is that the state of the United States people's health, that in our culture that does not have the emphasis on healthy eating, healthy exercise, carrying a healthy body weight, stress management, prioritizing 8 hours of sleep, and having which those things would result in a low incidence of heart disease, cancer, hypertension, diabetes, overweight, and obesity, which puts more than 50% of Americans at high risk to end up in the hospital with COVID. Like, we are a culture, unfortunately, of looking for a quick fix in a lot of ways, right? And so that in and of itself encourages vaccination, which, at this point it has to happen. But if we were in Sweden, for example, where our population was so much healthier, we may not even need vaccination, because for a lot of things. In this case, it's a little bit different breed. I would never say like people in Sweden shouldn't get vaccinated, but we wouldn't be seeing such morbidity and mortality as we are now. So, in my mind, it's just another example of like we have to be fighting for health more than we're fighting against disease, right? We have to be fighting for happiness more than we're frustrated ourselves for feeling anxious. Um, and we have to be, fighting for safety more than we're like anti-gun. And psychologically, that's the way our brain works. Like that's the way we have a tendency to go. But so, all in all, focusing on conspiracies, we just have to question our mind, like, does this living in a hypothetical situation serve us well? No, it does not. Let me rewind. What's the current state of my health status? What's the current state of the community's health status? What is the best next step for me? So, with that said, any questions? I had a couple I think that I answered as we went through, but I think that yeah, we're all kind of plugging along and things will be different soon. It doesn't serve us well to like try to resist and try to worry about when are we going to get back to normal? Like, let's create our new normal. And if we can learn to thrive within a global pandemic and 2020, 2021, we can do some pretty hard things. So put that on our resume, right? So, well, if anybody has any questions, so I plan to send out with the next little note, I'll send out some more information about specifics, like what I might recommend for people as you start to have vaccination available. What would be good to do like day before, day of, 2 or 3 days after to support yourself to have the best immune response. The best immune response is one where your body is working like, you know what, underneath the scenes, but you never even know about it. So it doesn't make you tired, doesn't make you achy, doesn't make you, have a fever. But if you do have those things, have patience with yourself because that really just means your body is mounting a robust immune response. And it's kind of like, okay, thank you. I'll take that for 24 hours and move on and thank my body for it. But I'll send out specifics about kind of a protocol that if you want to use, we can help you with. And also a reminder, if anybody wants to free life coaching, free chat on something you want to kind of chat through that you're either worrying about or have on your plate, or a decision that needs to be made, or a relationship that has some struggles with it, and you want to coach through it, then I can hook you up with some free resources. So without further ado, I will let you guys get on to have a good rest of your day. Bye.